Good evening and welcome to Pressing Issues. I'm your host, Jason Diffendahl, here with you for Sunday, March 7th, 2021. Let me introduce my panel for today. We have... Oh, there we go. We have Desi.
Hi.
And we have Stephanie.
Hey everyone.
And we have Rich.
Good evening, everyone.
All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to all of our viewers. Thanks for showing up tonight. I just realized I forgot to make a post on the site about the show tonight, so hopefully viewers are realizing that the show's still happening. But welcome everybody. Thanks for tuning in. So the big news this week, I guess, to get started is the Flower and Garden Festival kicking off on Wednesday. We had all kinds of coverage. We had all kinds of staff there Wednesday, checking out all the food, eating a lot, getting sick. So Wednesday was a big day. I wasn't there, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I don't know, whatever the case may be. But Desi was there. And she was there today? Yesterday. Yesterday she was there. And so she's going to give us her take on everything for the Flower and Garden, or the taste of the Flower and Garden Festival. And then, yeah, I mean, the other big news is that Disneyland may actually open within the next 3 weeks. That's kind of exciting. I don't know who's going to go since there aren't any annual pass holders anymore, and it's only open to California residents. And if you were a California resident, I kind of have to think you had a pass, an annual pass. So that'll be interesting to see how that turns out. And then, yeah, if I don't have a rant about something, remind me at the end, because I do have one that I forgot from a few weeks ago. It's an evergreen one. It's not very time sensitive. So we'll get to that if we have time. But let's kick it off. I want to turn the mic over to Desi and hear all about your experience yesterday at Flower and Garden. And I'm also actually really interested because normally, I mean, it's been usually the festival sometimes kicks off on Thursday. It used to always kick off on Friday. Then it was Thursday. Now it's Wednesday, which I guess helps to get all the bloggers out of the way so that normal people can enjoy it on Saturday. So I really want to hear about the crowds and your experience with the lines at the booths as well. So take us through how you spent Saturday.
Well, first off, the first thing I saw walking down the corridor was the gigantic ring in the middle of the lagoon, which I have to say was way bigger and much more of an eyesore than I was even expecting. And I had low expectations as it was, and seeing that, it really smacks you in the face. And part of the thing that really got me was that it wasn't centered. So if it was centered and I could see the America Pavilion within the ring, I feel like that would make a little bit more sense than having it slightly off-center so that it's just cutting right down the middle of the America Pavilion, just completely obstructing the view. That was first off. I went in the direction of the land and the sea and did the circle around that way. So I didn't think the crowd levels were too bad, but there were a few booths that I think probably everyone heard that this is where the best food was, and so the lines were really long. So maybe the reason I didn't have the best experience with the food was because I didn't feel like waiting in the ones that had the very long lines. So I waited in line for the China booth because there were only one or two people in line over there. And I got one of everything. And there was a chicken skewer that was pretty good. The crab and cheese wontons were pretty good. And then I got something that was called a papa cake. And this Papa Cake was the picture. It said Papa Cake. It looked like a cake. It had strawberries on top, drizzled with what looked like strawberry jam. I take a bite of this cake. I do not realize, and this is an FYI, everyone needs to read the fine print, not just the title and look at the picture. This cake was shrimp, potato, and water chestnuts with these strawberries and jam on top. It was probably the worst thing I've had at EPCOT. And then I would say everything I had was good. Nothing knocked my socks off. The problem that I think the Flower and Garden Festival has is that it follows the Festival of the Arts, which, in my opinion at least, is the best festival that EPCOT has. So nothing knocked my socks off. Whereas at the Festival of the Arts, I would say that the harissa lamb that I had at Morocco was incredible. It's probably one of the best things I ever had. Whereas this year, there was 0 things at the Morocco Pavilion that I would recommend. And then we get all the way over to the World Show Place, which I enjoy because it's inside. Yesterday was kind of cold, kind of windy, so it was nice to go somewhere inside where they have nice seating, tables that are spaced out. I don't feel like I'm on top of anybody. And I got the beef brisket sliders, which I would say tasted great. It was one of the best things that I had yesterday. However, immediately afterward, my aunt and I both fell ill, and I was still not feeling well this morning. So that's I would say that the highlights were probably the topiaries, which are always lovely. The only thing, I wish that they lit them better at night. They had some topiaries, the main topiaries, the Mickey, Minnie, Goofy topiary right there behind Spaceship Earth, were backlit, which does not make for the best photos. I feel like if you're going to light them, you should probably light them from the front.
Yeah, you would think.
And then my kids really enjoyed the Healthful Trail, which I don't know if they've had this in years past. Maybe it's just because I never had kids before. Maybe I never noticed it. But it's just like a great little place. It's got wide open grass. There's like a mini maze there for the kids to run through, and it's got kind of bleacher seating, but it looks like hedges, and some nice patio furniture with cushions and everything. So I would say that was probably the highlight, was just being able to look at the topiaries and the flowers, of course, and having a place for my kids to run around and get some energy out.
Yeah, there has usually been some kind of, kid-friendly spot for kids to just kind of run around or play or whatever. There hasn't been at there wasn't at Festival of the Arts, and I don't think there was at Flower and Garden last year. But it's good to see that they're bringing that back. I think that's something that's sorely needed.
It's something that we've definitely missed there. We went in 2017 and they had a playground where it was a sound mixture, like you would hit things and you would make certain musical notes, and that was pretty neat. But they also had the Adirondack chairs for the parents to sit in underneath umbrellas, which is wonderful as you watch your kids expend that energy that they just got from all of the ice cream they just ate. So I'm glad that they brought something back. I'm excited because we're going to go next month and get to experience all of this, and I'm happy to see that the butterfly garden has come back too, the butterfly house. Did you get to do that?
The line for the butterfly house was kind of long. It wasn't terrible, but I do have a kid with an underlying condition. I don't like him being around in close proximity with too many people, so that's the only reason we didn't do it.
Yeah, the butterfly house has always been a really cool thing. But it usually is super crowded, and I imagine there's probably a lower limit to the number of people now that they allow in there, which means the lines are probably even longer than they used to be before. I assume you'll probably go back again at some point, Desi, before the end of the festival, and usually much later in the festival, especially if it's not a weekend, opening weekend. The lines for that are...
And now that I've read the reviews, I wish that I had started in the test trek mission space direction instead of the land seas direction, only because I hear that that booth, it used to be the donut one. I don't know what it's called now. But I've heard that that booth has the best food. But of course, by the time I got there, I wasn't hungry anymore and not feeling well.
Yep.
Okay.
We haven't been there for a while, but we always make a spreadsheet so that we know where to which one to hit first, because you never know. New things every year.
You don't.
Some are good, and some are not.
I mean, the other issue is that, booths can have off days, and so it certainly happens that, what was good on Wednesday that Tom had and is extolling the virtues of on Saturday is bad or cold or whatever, and so that's the other problem that I've noticed with festivals too, is that the consistency just isn't there. And so you can sort of go, by what people say. But if it's like the first weekend of the festival and you go by what people say, it could be very different on the day you get there.
Well, I don't care what day you go. Potatoes, shrimp, and strawberries do not go well together.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Yeah. I know when we've been there for a longer period of time, is it Northern Bloom that had the tips or the brisket a couple of years?
Canada.
So the first trip, it was really not good at all. It was fatty and didn't taste good and had a bad consistency. But we tried it again, and it was amazing. So you really just never know. It depends on who's cooking it, I guess, or what they're given to cook on any particular day.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
I'm wondering if it's just because World Showplace was one of the last places I hit up, and the beef brisket had just been sitting there a while. Maybe that's why I got a bad one.
Was it cold when you got it?
It was warm, but it was ready, so it was sitting underneath of a heat lamp, and they just handed it to me.
Rich, people in the chat are saying it's funny that we're wearing the same shirt. I think mine is a year older than yours. I mean, it is
mine's 2018.
This one
I didn't even notice.
This one's 2017. Yeah, so
I have one of those too. I'm glad I didn't. Glad I didn't choose that
one. You've got the 2018 and I've got the 2017. So we're not quite twins.
Not quite.
I didn't even think of that and realize that.
Have the same shade of our hair, though.
I know, right?
That's funny. Yeah, well, this one has
I did
green on it,
purposely
and I
pick these
usually
years
have a
because they
green
were
screen,
flowers.
so I decided to wear it.
Yeah, this one is olive green enough that it doesn't interfere with my green screen.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
But that is really funny. Really funny. All right. So I guess how about merchandise, Desi? Did you check out any of the merch that's there?
I looked. I would say that the Orange Bird merchandise was maybe a little too orange, I guess. I don't know. It was too much going on.
Yeah.
The Orange Bird was gigantic. It was tie-dye. It was too much. The Figment and the mini ones were really cute, though. The Orange Bird was just a bit much for me.
Yeah.
There was like a green bowl that was really cute. It looked kind of like the cookie jar, but cut in half.
Mm-hmm. I saw that.
And green.
I kind of want that.
That one was really cute, too.
Yeah, I kind of want that. What about the Orange Bird sipper? Did you see the new Orange Bird sipper? Do they have
did.
That?
The only difference was that it's got letters now, right? As opposed to just being the Orange Bird.
Yeah, it's very slightly different.
Yeah.
Not enough that you'd be able to
it.
tell without paying attention. Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I have like 5 of the old Orange Bird sippers, so it's. I need the new one, but it's not urgent.
You need the new one.
Complete the
need
set.
it. I know. I know.
Yeah, I would say that other than the Orange Bird merchandise, everything else was pretty cute. I mean, some people might like the Orange Bird merchandise. I don't know. It was a bit much, a bit in your face for me, personally.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm also thinking you could probably take your Spaceship Earth cookie jar and take the lid off and put plants in it, and that's a planter too.
Yeah, I think the planter was the same price as my cookie jar. So
Well, there's that.
I'd rather have the cookie jar.
Well, then there's also you could probably sell the cookie jar on eBay for like $100 because
Oh, I know.
it's sold out quickly. So that's an expensive
Well,
planter. Which you're just
I
going to
looked
plant
out of just out of curiosity. I looked to see how much it was going for on eBay around Christmas time, and it was like $300. And my husband's like, "You want to sell your cookie jar?" I'm like, "How
No.
dare you?"
So, are you? You think? What do you think? Flower and Garden versus Festival of the Arts. Then, you said Festival of the Arts is your favorite.
Festival of the Arts. I love the food. I love the interactivity with being able to paint the mural. I love being able to just get in the paintings. I think that's so much fun. I mean, Festival of the Arts knocked Flower and Garden out of the park this year. Festival of the Arts, hands down, the best EPCOT festival. I still enjoy Flower and Garden. Of course, I'm going to go back. I love the topiaries. I loved hearing the Voices of Liberty. But they had that during the Festival of the Arts, too.
Yeah, yeah. You know,
we generally like I think number 1 for us is Festival of the Arts, and number 2 is probably Flower and Garden, which, as we were talking before the show, which is kind of funny for a festival that was thrown together over a period of 3 weeks or whatever it was for the first one.
yeah.
But we caught the tail end of the Masterpieces event down at Disney. Well, I guess it was still downtown Disney back then. So Festival of the Arts kind of sort of scratches that itch, get some original art, talk with the artists, and eat, gotta eat.
Yeah.
The only criticism I think I would have of the arts these days is that they still have to find the balance between artfully plated food and food that doesn't take 10 minutes to serve to you while you're waiting in front of the booth.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, I wonder if I mean there's something to be said for like themed food during the festivals, but also I don't know that people necessarily want that or appreciate it. And one of the things that comes to mind is the deconstructed dish booth. Like, every time I've gone to the deconstructed dish and it's like, oh, there's a deconstructed Reuben. I'm like, well, I love Reubens. We should try that. And then I'm like, this is nothing like a Reuben. And then I'm like, well, that's because it's deconstructed, obviously. But it's like, I don't really know that I care. It's kind of like, I think I would rather just have good food than, artfully looking plated food.
Right.
Right. I mean,
You
and
eat
it's
with
fine
your
to
eyes
do that.
first.
Yeah, and I mean, it's fine to do that in some places. I honestly think like it probably makes sense to do some of that maybe in World Showplace where the prep area is much bigger and they could have more people there to put it together. But at some of these other booths, I don't know that it's necessarily warranted. We have a question in the chat. What's the difference between 2 festivals? Is there a food difference or a style difference?
Everything.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, they're both at Epcot.
other than they're both in Epcot and they both have food booths, everything else is pretty much different. So all the menus are different.
One is art themed, the other is
Yeah.
flower and garden themed.
Although I think the China booth has the crab and cheese wontons at every festival, right?
There are some carryovers. I
Yeah.
really liked
Yeah,
in the
definitely.
inaugural year, they also had interactivity where you could take cooking classes and you could take
Mhm.
sommelier classes, things, the art of food as well, right? And so then you had the artistry of the people coming and having their own booths, but also you had the people that were doing the chalk drawings. And I'm so
Yeah.
glad that they were still able to do that this year, even because of COVID.
Oh, I
But
love the
they were
chalk
still able
drawing.
to have them there. Yes, and like you said, the interactive mural for everyone, especially for kids, gives them something to do as well. And I agree with the three of you. I mean, that's my favorite. Festival of the Holidays, I would also say, is great whenever you get to have those live actors there presenting each country's traditions and stories. They weren't there this year, and I was disappointed because we got to go this year and it wasn't the same. You did hear the Voices of Liberty sing those wonderful, Christmas time songs, but it just wasn't the same in the countries that.
Yeah, going back to the themed food, the garden graze, everything on that stroll is something that I would say is boring or I wouldn't want. It was the first booth I came across had nobody in line. I was like, oh, well, what's here? And it was the grilled baby vegetables, which is one of the things on the stroll, and like salmon cakes. I'm like, well, I don't want either one of these things. Um, and then the other things on the garden graze were the impossible Korean short ribs. The So it's not even real meat. It's the pineapple skewer, which is literally just a pineapple on a stick, potato pancakes, not the shrimp, strawberry potato pancakes, just regular potato pancakes, and a lemon cake from Morocco. So maybe the lemon cake I'd be interested in getting. Anything
It
else
was,
on
al-
that?
it was almost like
I
they took
mean,
the stuff that nobody wanted so that they would make extra money by making you do the
that's
stroll or something.
that's the only reason they did. They're like, oh, I'm gonna buy it. Let's go ahead and put it in the stroll to make sure that we sell it.
Yeah, people in the chat are saying that's why it's called a taste because it's not the same as other years, and I get that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we should expect less for the same price and the same entrance fee that we've paid in years past. I mean, obviously, there's certain things they can't do because of COVID, like the storytellers in at Festival of the Holidays, right? You can't have 100 people gathered around a storyteller in whatever country and listen to the story, so that's not going to work. But there's plenty of other things that they could still do, and they choose not to do, and blame it on COVID, but it really has nothing to do with COVID. And this was a rant I went on in years past, and I can see myself going on it again and again. But I mean, you pay the same amount to get in the park, and you pay the same amount or more for the food, and then the food isn't good, or it makes you ill, and the entertainment isn't there, the cooking classes isn't there. I thought the cooking classes and things like that at the festivals in the past were great. I mean, that's obviously something they can't do now, but I think there certainly is more opportunity, I think, for entertainment than what they currently offer. So, like at Festival of the Arts, they had Carol the pianist, and then these weird, I don't even like acrobat type people in World Showplace, and it was kind of odd. Um, but I
They
honestly,
did have a pianist in World Showplace.
yeah, Carol from the UK Pavilion. Um, Honestly, I thought they should have more. Like those things happen maybe once an hour, and it's like a 10 or 15 minute long show. Like, there's no reason they couldn't have some entertainment going, you know, full time in there. But obviously that costs money. But anyway, we won't get into that. Um, but yeah, somebody else in the chat mentioned about Pete eating crickets. Um,
Oh,
I assume he didn't get the crickets, does he?
I skipped out on the crickets this time. I think the line must have been long.
The line must have been long.
Right.
Are you sure? Are you sure the line was long?
I definitely skipped out on the crickets.
That's
The one
unfortunate.
other thing that I wanted to mention about going to EPCOT was seeing the new lighting and the
Oh,
flags
yes. Yeah.
and the entrance music. And I would say that I really liked it. I liked the entrance music. I liked the lighting. I liked the flags. The one thing I wanted to say about it was they said it was inspired by breathtaking views and aspirational architecture of the original EPCOT. So basically, it's inspired by everything they just took away.
Everything you can't have anymore, yes.
So
Yep.
no views because we just put the barges out in the lagoon, and no aspirational architecture because we are in the middle of bulldozing it all down.
Yep, exactly. Every time I see the Communicore updates, I get sadder and sadder. Like I wish they would have just like imploded it and gotten it over with, because it's dragging on for months now, and it's so sad. And I
Like
get
they're
upset.
handcrafting a demolition.
Yeah, right. I know, and it's like, okay, well, maybe they're recycling some of the materials or whatever, because man, there was a heck of a lot of steel in those buildings. But that's all fine and good, but man, they're just going so. I mean, no wonder it takes them like 17 years to open a new land in a theme park, because it's like that's how if that's how slow they go demolishing it. No wonder it takes them so long to actually build anything. So people in the chat are going crazy over the crickets and about how crickets have 4 times more protein than beef and chicken, which I believe
They
that.
should have put the crickets on the straw.
But you're also not eating a quarter-pounder cricket, right? Like, it has 4 times more protein, but you're also eating like much less weight-wise of crickets than you are a beef or chicken.
I don't know. Maybe some people eat a whole bunch of crickets at once. A quarter pound worth of crickets.
Maybe. I mean, I guess you could smash a quarter pound of crickets into a burger shape and put it on a bun and call it like the Impossible Quarter Pounder. I mean, you don't really know what those Impossible burgers are made out of, do you? You just know they taste like beef, but you don't really know what's in them. But anyway,
If Simba can do it.
yeah, I mean, they also make like chocolate-covered crickets that I think might be more appealing to people because they're chocolate. So,
It's true.
yeah, I don't know. Somebody, Chief Leaf says he couldn't even eat crickets. The thought of consuming bugs makes me feel sick, and I think that's probably the case for a lot of people in the U.S. But somebody earlier said that like 80% of the world eats insects. I just remember watching.
Slimy yet satisfying.
I remember watching Survivor like many years ago, where they had like this insect eating contest, and like you had to bid money on insects, and then you didn't know what they were, and then you had to eat them. So, it was.
But that's I don't know how many. I mean, when I was in Africa, which was a long time ago, we had powder, which was protein, and it came from a multitude of ground up roasted insects. But it was just powder. I mean, you weren't like eating something with wings that was staring at you, which is why I don't like to eat squid and octopus.
You weren't eating hopper.
Yeah, you weren't eating hopper. It was just an additive to the cornmeal or whatever that tasted a little roasty and added some texture, and you got your protein.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can totally believe most of the world having that. I'm having a trouble with the delicacy of fire roasted chocolate covered red ants or something like that. That seems more like a stunt than anything else, really.
Yeah. True. Very true.
Scorpion skewers.
Yeah. No, thank you.
My husband has eaten those.
Oh gosh.
Rich Archfox in the chat asked, "Did you bless the rains down in Africa?"
Yeah.
Which
I was there during their winter in August, September, and it was very rainy. Yeah, it was rainy and cold. Not at all what you think of what Africa is like. But
yeah, well, that's the time to
I've
go,
only been to
right?
Northern Africa.
yeah, that would be Northern Africa. I was in Southern, but yeah, it was interesting.
That's the time.
I did not bless the rains in Africa. Otherwise, I would have to pay Toto some royalties. So.
Yes, you would. When the Disney announced they were having adding a third Antarctic cruise to their Adventures by Disney itinerary, and I said to my wife and kids, I'm like, we should go to Antarctica on Adventures by Disney, and we looked up when it was, and they're in December and January. But that's
Summer
the warm
there.
season, right? That's the
That's
summer
their
season.
summer.
Yeah.
Although it's
Yeah.
like a high
I
temperature
went
of like
to-
32 degrees, which is the same as our winter for the most part.
It's
So,
all
like,
relative, right?
right? What difference does it make? You're either here when
I
it's
would-
32 degrees or down there and it's 32 degrees.
I went to Antarctica in like January or February, and my husband really wants to go because it's the only continent he hasn't been to, and the only one I haven't been to is Australia. So we're in a race.
Yeah, I would totally go. I think it's kind of, I don't even know like if it's because I want to go to Antarctica. I just think it would be a really cool thing to do. That, it's kind of a place where nature is sort of untouched, I guess. I mean, there's plenty like Greenland is probably pretty much that too, but the Adventures by Disney doesn't go to Greenland because nobody goes to Greenland.
They're
But
going
anyway.
to buy it, right?
We did look into the Adventures by Disney Antarctica only
Yeah.
because my husband really wants to go for his seventh continent,
Yeah.
but the price is insane.
It's like $13,000. It is
Yeah.
absolutely insane. When I saw that, I'm like, holy smokes, that's a lot. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that includes like a couple days in whatever is it? I forget where it leaves from, but it includes a couple days in South America on the mainland before you get on the boat to Antarctica.
Yeah,
and then
when
it
I-
includes like 3
when I
days
went-
in Antarctica.
I didn't actually get to step on Antarctica. It was a cruise that went basically from Chile down around to Argentina. So
Yeah.
my husband always says that, well, I didn't step foot on Antarctica, so it doesn't. I say, well, I got a lot
Doesn't
closer
count.
than anybody else.
I mean, you were not in international waters, right? You were in Antarctic waters, so that
Yes.
kind of counts, right? I mean, once you're out of international waters, if they could come and capture you and take you and put you in jail in the country, then you kind of have to be. You're in the country whether you're on the land or not.
There you go. I hope you're listening.
But yeah, $13,000 is kind of more than I would think I would
Steep.
spend to go
Yes,
to.
agreed.
I mean,
Yeah.
people are talking about like you could probably go to the moon for $13,000 if you wait like 10 or 20
At this
years,
point.
right? Yeah, I mean, like that's
Yeah.
coming. It's not like that's far off. That there's going to be, just vacations to the moon or to outer space or whatever. So, I
But
think.
the Adventures by Disney, you do actually get to step foot on Antarctica.
Do you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's worth $10.
But I still don't have $13,000.
Yeah, right. I tried to talk Tom into saying he should let me go on this so that we can review it for the site because we don't.
I mean, obviously, somebody needs to.
Somebody need because we never reviewed any other Adventures by Disney, so we should start with a big one. But he wasn't necessarily too happy with the plan. But anyways, all right.
Shocking.
So Festival of the Arts, Flower and Garden. A taste
Which is
of
over.
Flower and Garden.
a taste of Flower and Garden. I mean, some flowers are edible, which is probably tasty, but a taste of the garden, I don't know.
I did have
It's more like a
the
taste of
violet
garden
lemonade
merchandise.
because I'm a basic Disney girl, but I did not eat the flower that comes in it.
Oh, usually
It
those
really doesn't
flowers.
have much flavor.
Yeah, I mean, well, they're usually like hibiscus or something. Yeah,
I thought it was a violet.
It was
The
a
violet
little.
lemonade is one of my favorite things. So
is
good
it?
choice.
It was really good, yeah.
Um, yeah, people in the chat are talking about cruises and how they don't like cruises. They'd rather just go to the Disney resorts. Um, and that is what I thought all along too until I went on a cruise. And then it's like I'd rather not go to the Disney resorts, honestly, because it's just too much hassle. And I think I talked
Well,
about this a little bit last week too, about how like the last trip I wasn't even going to go to a Disney park just because it's too much hassle sometimes. A cruise is so nice because everything is kind of there and you can do what you want and none of it is a hassle.
It depends
We're
on how much you
supposed to
do.
go. We're supposed to go on a
Go ahead.
Disney cruise in October, and I haven't ever done one before, so I'm really excited about it.
And the Halloween ones are really cool.
That's
So
what we're going on, the Halloween
Yeah.
one.
there's a lot to do on the ship, and it just all depends on how much you want to do. You can do as little as you want, or you can do as much as you want. And if you have kids, they want to see all the characters. You need to get in line 45 minutes before they close it. They start to close the line. And so even if the character meet and greet is continuing to go. Now, I don't know how this is going to play out with COVID. They might not have that anymore, but you had to like be in line before they close the line, even though there's still an hour left in the meet and greet, and then all the shows. So there, I found, and of course, we had little kids at the time. Our oldest are 10 now, but they were all 5 and under at the time we went, and so I was running from one end of the ship to the other, and I just didn't feel like it was very restful at all. And they weren't old enough to go into the kids play zone except in the open times. So during the open times, all the family can go.
Yeah. Yep.
My
that's
kids
the
aren't
one
going to
thing.
be old enough. They'll be 1 and 2. So,
Yeah,
So you can do
have
the
to-
nursery, but you have to pay for that.
right. So you have to pay for the nursery.
No, that.
Yeah.
But we're
that-
going with another couple, so maybe the other couple
That'll be
will get
good.
to watch all the kids
Yeah,
one
that's-
night, and then we'll watch all the kids the next night.
That's a great plan. That's absolutely a great plan. Yeah, the one thing I will absolutely recommend for anyone that wants to go on a cruise with kids is either make sure your kids are old enough to go into the kids clubs, and make sure they want to, right? Like, you really need to hype up the kids clubs as much as possible so they're so excited to go, because if they don't go, then it's like, well, what's the point, you know?
Right.
So you have to make sure they're going to go to the kids clubs. My kids are old enough now that they'll go to the my oldest, last time we went on a cruise, it wasn't actually a Disney cruise, but the last time we went, she was old enough to go in the teen club, and she really liked that. So now both of them would be old enough to go in the teen club, and so yeah, I think
When
when
we
cruising-
were cruising, our kids were kids, so that was a good club.
The other suggestion I would make, if you can, Desi, is look and see if you get 2 days at Castaway Cay, because that's a great little break. We had 1 day there, but if you can make that trip back and hit it a second time.
There are a handful of cruises every year that stop there twice in the same week.
Oh.
And they're super popular cruises. There was one, I was looking at one last year. Go ahead.
You were looking at which one next year?
Oh, I was looking at a cruise last year on Royal Caribbean that was going to stop 2 times on their private island.
Royal Caribbean has a beach in Haiti. I don't think
do.
it's an island.
No, they have both.
Oh, they do?
Yes, they have. They have the beach in Haiti, and then they have an island, and I forget what it's called. I want to say Half Moon Key, but that might be Norwegian. I can't remember now. But they
I feel
have
like
an
I've been
island
to Half Moon
also.
Key, but I can't remember who.
They have an island also. They have both. Just depends. So one is like for their Bahamas trips, and one is for like their further south itineraries. But anyway, We're really off topic. Um, but
Cruising.
yeah, once cruising starts again, we had to cancel a cruise last year because of COVID, and
We
so
did too.
between cruising and going back to Tokyo, it's like as soon as this COVID stuff is over, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to spend all of my vacation time from work and just go somewhere, anywhere. And I told my boss too. I'm like, if things start to open up again in the summer, it's like I told him I'm going to take like 2 or 3 weeks off at one shot, like 2 or 3 weeks in a row, and just go somewhere.
I'm going to Alani next month.
Yeah, but not for 2 or 3 weeks, right? That would be spectacular to go there for a couple weeks.
1 week.
1 week. Yeah.
1 week in Hawaii. Yeah.
Yeah. David brought up in the chat that WDWNT, the cruise, was canceled last year, which it was. That was another one that got canceled besides the one I was going to go on in May. But yeah, we'll try to do that again at some point. I don't know when. Yeah, I think there's plenty of people that are kind of aching to go places, and a lot of them are going to Disney World right now because that's what's open.
Because it's open.
Yeah. BC fan just mentioned the Disneyland reopening is California only. Yeah, well, so we didn't actually talk about the announcements of Disneyland reopening, but we could talk about it now for sure.
Next on the list of
This
topics.
show has never gone off topic before.
No, absolutely not.
Never.
No precedent.
But yeah, so there's new legislation in California that's making it easier for Disneyland to open, and now they're allowed to open on April 1st, I want to say, unless that's an April Fool's joke, but I hope it's not. But it's only for California residents. So clearly, California doesn't want people traveling in from out of state to go to Disneyland.
They don't want that tourism money.
They don't want the tourism money, which is, and you know what's really weird is that, so they announced a couple of weeks ago that Grand Californian DVC was opening on May 2nd, and we got reservations to go and stuff. But I don't know where people are going to stay. Like, all right, so all of the locals that live within an hour of Disneyland all had annual passes, and they don't anymore. So the question is, are those people anxious enough to go that they're going to pay full ticket price to go when full ticket price for them is probably like a third of what their annual pass cost last year? Plus
If
the full
I
ticket
lived in
price.
California...
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, plus full ticket price is like, it's like way more than what they would pay on the monthly payment plan too. So, I mean, on the one hand, the occupancy of the park is capped at 15%. So that's a great thing because it will be well worth your money to go, right? Like if you ever want to go to Disneyland when no one's there, that's the time to go.
I thought 25% last summer was fantastic in
Yeah,
Disney
right?
World.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds even more amazing.
Yeah, but the question is, these people. So you have a big contingent of locals that had annual passes and might be so annoyed that their annual passes got canceled, and they don't want to pay full ticket price, or they can't afford to pay full ticket price because they're accustomed to, a monthly payment plan that was like $20 a month, and so you limit it to Californians, and if there's a huge contingent of locals that aren't going to go, then you have to come from further away in California, and those people need somewhere to stay overnight. But the hotels aren't opening. So I'm not sure what Disneyland is thinking, that they're going to open and all these people are going to come but not want to stay overnight. And of course, even if you come from an hour or two away, if you're going to go and spend a weekend or 2 days there or whatever, you're probably going to want to stay overnight anyway. And so the question is, like, what, they're not opening the hotels. What are they thinking?
Yeah, the not opening the hotels, I definitely don't understand. if I lived in I've been sitting at home for a year, not doing anything because nothing's been open. So I've probably got some extra money lying around that I'd be willing to spend the extra money to go to the parks to have that experience with them that empty.
Right.
Yeah, I haven't been to Disneyland in a while, but one observation was that it's very much a lifestyle to go to the park and just kind of, it's your park. You know, it's not a vacation destination necessarily. And I can certainly agree with there's probably enough pent-up demand. And maybe Disney's counting on people just driving an hour or two, spending the whole day in the park, and then driving away, just to kind of dip their toes, start things slow, you know, see what goes on and what happens, because it's a way to automatically limit the number of people in the park, too.
I live in Tampa, so I drive an hour to get to the parks, and I go all the time.
And you go all the time, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going down to Disney World in May, and we are definitely paying, well, we're not going to Disney World. We're going to Florida, and we're going to spend a day at Disney World, and we are going to pay the day fee to go to Disney World just because we want to.
A 1 day? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have lots of other things to deal with, so we figure we'll take a day off and try to go to the park.
I did spend money on just a 1 day ticket when I was in California because I had like a lot of other things to do while I was in California, so I only had the 1 day. So I guess I get it. It just seems like there's so much to do here.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I was going to bring up. Disneyland and DCA are smaller areas, smaller walkways, smaller main streets, smaller queues.
They're
everything
very easy to park hop.
Yeah, but it's harder to spread people out.
Right.
There isn't as much backstage area either, for that matter. You know, especially with the building that they've done. I mean, I was there the first time in January of 2002, which was only 3 months or whatever after September 11th, 2001, and the park was empty, and it was great. But the next year when we went back, there was a conference that we went to for several years. It was full, and it was crowded, and there was not much room to do anything.
Well, maybe at the 15%, cap, maybe they're thinking it's not as advantageous to open up their other hotels because they have their flagship, which if people are going to want to spend the night, they're going to pay more money to stay there. But then you also have like their good neighbor hotels. I'm sure that Hilton and all these other ones will be open.
Yeah, I mean, they're all open now. They're all open now. So certainly there'll be hotels for people to stay at. They just won't be Disney hotels. But yeah,
so there's that.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, so I'm thinking like 15%. I'm thinking like in Florida when it's crowded and the socially distanced line for Haunted Mansion crashes into the line for Big Thunder Mountain and Splash Mountain and Pirates.
I'm so glad I've never been there on one of those days.
Man, it was crazy. But I mean, like, if that happened at Disneyland, like the walkways couldn't handle it. Like, you just don't have enough space on a lot of those walkways for queues to stretch out like that. It's just not possible.
And still have room for people to walk by who aren't in the queue.
Exactly. So, I mean, crowd control at Disneyland on a day that's not crowded is problematic. And then you've got to space out all your queues. And the other thing is that queues at Disneyland don't really aren't anywhere near as big. Like, they don't have tons of indoor queue space. It's like you walk in the door and you're there. So you've got you've got things like Indiana Jones that has a pretty extensive queue now, but all the Fantasyland rides have very little queue.
Jungle Cruise is very small.
Jungle Cruise is
so do you think... Sorry, I was just going to say, do you think there will be a lot of switchbacks with plexiglass then?
I think there has to be. I mean, I think if it's as necessary in Florida as it appears to be, it's got to be more necessary in Disneyland. But then you've got switchbacks that are very are going to be very small and narrow and crowded because that's how they are at Disneyland. Like if they put plexiglass in all the switchbacks in the Fantasyland rides, it's going to be claustrophobic. I mean, those queues are claustrophobic to begin with,
It's going to
right?
be hot.
It's going to be hot. It's going to be claustrophobic. And then you think about things like, all right, Storybook Land canal boats. Like you've got virtually no queue for that. The Alice in Wonderland queue is a giant, traffic jam on a regular day. It's going to be, those are going to be a mess. Like I don't know that. Go ahead.
Given all that and the 15% cap, if I were running the circus, I would say, well, only half the things are going to be open, if that. Those things with large indoor queues
or what's going to be
queues
open.
are the ones
Yeah,
that are gonna open.
I mean, it would really make sense for something like Storybook Land canal boats just isn't going to open. Like what you could fit 5 people on a boat or something, and there's no queue anyway. So it's like that's not. I would bet money that that's not going to open.
But high turnover things like Matterhorn and Space Mountain.
Matterhorn, Space, Indy, Pirates, like those things will all be open. Yeah, and
They
Chief
can
Leaf
loop
says,
Matterhorn around it.
They can. Yeah, they can. Chief Leaf says the small size is what makes Disneyland's Fantasyland so charming. I agree 100%.
Yeah,
it also
definitely.
makes it a crowd disaster during most of the time. But yeah. And things like Small World where the queue... the other good thing about Disneyland is that a lot of the queues are outdoors, like Small World.
It's true.
That whole queue is outdoors, so... in that case, if they had to put plexi in the queues, at least you'd be outdoors and can have some fresh air.
What struck me while I was in California was how much more outdoor seating they have than we do here in Florida for the restaurants, which, it's probably just because weather in California is not as hot and not as rainy as it gets here.
Yep.
So they could definitely... at least restaurant-wise, fit in a lot more people than we could here.
Yeah, they could. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And it'll also be interesting to see what happens, like, because you just mentioned park hopping at Disneyland is so easy, but if California Adventure's not open, because it's closed for the, hard ticket event, food events, that's also another thing that people aren't going to be park hopping. But then again, if you were gonna park hop on a 1-day pass, that's a huge extra cost for that. Most of the park hopping people either are there with a 3 or 4 or 5 day ticket that includes the park hopping, or they're annual pass holders, which don't exist anymore. So, I can absolutely see that park hopping is going to be a non-issue because no one's going to pay the park hopping add-on price on a 1-day ticket, and B, there's not going to be any annual pass holders, so there's not going to be anybody there to park hop. So we'll see what park hopping returns. That'll be interesting.
We only fairly recently opened park hopping here, so I imagine it would probably take several months for Disneyland before they considered that as well.
I mean, we didn't open park hopping until way after we were I don't know what % of capacity we're supposed to be at today, but it's got to be like 50 or 60% at least.
Supposedly 35.
Well, that's just the last thing they said it was. But it's got to be 50 or 60%, if not more. So Disneyland at 15% is not going to have park hopping. But I think it's going to be a while till they bring back park hopping too. But then nobody's going to go to California Adventure, and then you have the age-old Disneyland problem of you have 2 parks, but no one wants to go to one of them. So
you put private events on that one.
Well,
and call it a day.
Yeah. I mean, the one, so, until Cars Land opened, nobody wanted to go to California Adventure. I would go to California Adventure to see World of Color, but if they're not going to show World of Color, then it's kind of like, well, what's the point? This whole thing about no parades and no nighttime shows is really getting old to me. I haven't been to Disney parks ever where I've missed the nighttime shows and fireworks as much. Even when I would go for a week, I wouldn't go see like all the nighttime shows every night, but I would go to see Illuminations at least once and the fireworks at the Magic Kingdom at least once. I might skip Phantasmic because it's a pain.
Water pageant at least once.
Water pageant was easy because you could see it from your hotel. But I would skip Phantasmic quite a bit because it was just a pain. Because I didn't want to line up hours and hours ahead of time. And I would skip Rivers of Light almost all the time because it's not.
Because it just sucked.
Because it sucks. Yeah. But I would absolutely go see Illuminations at least a couple times during a standard week trip, and I would go see Wishes a couple times. I don't see Happily as much because I don't like it as much, but I would go see World of Color. Like there was a point in time in 2013, 14-ish where I saw World of Color like 16 times in a week.
One thing that struck me when I saw the barges at EPCOT yesterday was that you've got the center ring and you've got the two barges. When you had Illuminations, you basically, no matter where you stood within World Showcase, you got the same show.
Right.
I don't know how they're going to do that with the ring and the barges, because it seems like you have to be in one spot to be able to see.
So there's going to be 2 more of the taco barges, which means probably get a view of the screens. Sort of, no matter where you stand, you'll be able to see at least 1, if not 2, of the screens. The ring in the middle, I can only imagine, is going to rotate at a very high rate of speed and spin around like those little like LED toys that spin around and create like a colored wheel thing, right? But it's really only one set of LEDs that's just spinning really rapidly to make the circular color thing. Well, that's what I'm imagining that ring in the middle is going to do.
In my head, I'm envisioning Jodie Foster doing an interdimensional travel with the spinning ring. So that's a whole other movie. So.
Yeah. No, I don't know what the center ring is supposed to do. Anyway, so we'll see what happens. I don't know whether you're going to want to stand the center ring also has like arms that come out of it, so maybe it'll be better if the arms come out perpendicular to the ring or something. But
they're going to have spherical water jets. It's a new technology.
And then, are they supposed to turn the water features on during the day, or is that just what it's supposed to look like during the day?
No, they're supposed to have water fountains during the day. We talked about this last week. They're supposed to have water fountains during the day, and everybody's saying, "Oh, it'll look so much better when the fountains are on," except for the size of those barges means you're going to have to pump the entire contents of World Showcase Lagoon through the barges once every 3 minutes in order to cover the enormity of those barges. So I can't understand that the water fountains are going to cover the barges completely. That's number one. Number two is that, I don't expect much from the water fountains in terms of longevity and maintenance. The water fountains will look good for the first week or so, and then they'll break, and then they won't look good anymore, and they'll get fixed sort of on the standard Walt Disney World repair schedule, which is weeks to months after it breaks is when it finally gets fixed. I mean, the Tower of Terror sign on World Drive finally started moving again. The elevator started moving again this week after I don't know how long it's been that thing hasn't operated correctly. So, that's the repair schedule. It's something broke and we put it on the list of things to fix, and we'll get to it in maybe a month or maybe 2 or 3 months, or we'll wait and see how many people complain or write nasty emails to guest relations, or I don't know how they prioritize stuff, but some stuff takes forever to get fixed.
Those tacos in that ring are gigantic, like
They are
way
They're
bigger
enormous.
than I was expecting. I think the last time I was at Epcot, I only saw one taco, so I didn't quite get how much of an eyesore it was going to be once everything was in there. But
Yeah.
it's gigantic.
It
You
really
can't see anything.
No, it occupies such a huge, like, you think World Showcase Lagoon is big, but these things occupy and block the view of so much across the lagoon. Like, I don't even know. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the show is going to be, and maybe it's going to be good. But
It has to be
it's gonna
spectacular.
it's still gonna look really bad during the day, all day, for 12 hours before the show, and then maybe they'll look good for 15 minutes of the show, and that's it. But man, those things
So
are just.
instead, it'll be a big black eyesore, and then it'll be a big wet black eyesore, and then it'll have 15 minutes of fame, and then it'll go back to being an eyesore again.
That's right. That's right.
I agree. It completely disrupts sight lines. And one of the best things to do is just to get your food and sit down on a bench and look across the
Yeah.
lagoon and look at all the different countries. You can't do that anymore. Even with the water fountains, it's not going to
Nope.
be doable. What about the friendship boats? Like, are they going to navigate through there? Are they going to
do.
just stop
They
using
do.
them at all?
Yeah.
No,
Really?
yeah,
No,
the one
they're still running.
Even
only one of the friendship boats is running. The Morocco side is running, and they
Okay.
navigate around. I assume the other side will.
But the water
be able to
features
run
are
too,
not
but-
turned on.
Yeah, right. So, like,
So-
you get a windy day, and the friendship boats are going to get covered with water.
that's right. That's what I'm
Right?
saying.
Like, they're going to turn the
Get your
friendship boats.
spray.
It's going to be like they're going to turn them into Maid of the Mist at Niagara Falls, where you just have to, like, drive through the water fountains. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, I can go on rants about that for every day until it happens, and then we'll see how good or bad it actually looks.
And what's really galling was it BioReconstruct who pointed out the area that was cleared that was theoretically going to be the storage area for the Harmonious barges
Mhm.
back in the
Yeah.
original
Behind,
Concept.
So they were
Yes.
supposed.
They
yeah,
were supposed to take them on and off stage, just like at the Illuminations.
there
which would
were
have been-
originally plans to increase the size of the backstage marina where they store the
Even if
barges.
they just removed, a taco or two, I feel like it would be better.
Even
than-
if they just, like, hit them with a torpedo and sunk them.
Well, here's a wild idea. How about a platform that goes into the water during the day? And then
No,
rises
that's
up at
genius. That is
night? I mean,
genius.
Oh my God.
could've
Can
tried
you
that.
imagine?
Come on.
Can you imagine? That's genius. There's nobody that can do anything like that.
Yeah, that's
That's
probably
impossible.
too far afield. Yeah, it's a dream.
That's impossible.
OLC. Hire
Um,
OLC.
I mean, you have that to some extent at OLC. You have that at World of Color, and you have it to some extent at Universal even.
Yeah,
Right?
The new Lagoon show. That's true. Forgot about that.
Maybe they're going to use the giant ring portal to travel back in time to a better Epcot. I think about this a lot, and I think about. I need to say happy birthday to Chief Leaf. Happy birthday, Chief Leaf.
Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday.
Chief.
Oh, happy birthday.
I think about this a lot, and usually it's when I see, like, the demolition pictures and stuff, and I think about when I die, where do I want to go? And I think it's like 1986 Epcot. Like, that would make me happy. That's what I think about when I see those demolition pictures. It's like that's where I would go. Really, anything between like 83 and 89 is probably I'd be happy. But that's
I'm still upset about the hydrolator not making it past round one. By the way.
yeah. I mean, I'm upset about being up past midnight for that stupid March Madness thing, but it is fun. I mean, I do that every year. It is a lot of fun. So yeah, shout out to March. If you haven't watched WDW News Tonight on Thursday, we started March Madness this week, and we have a big big field of 64 attraction vehicles this year. And 32 have gotten eliminated already. Amongst them was the hydrolator, which was the biggest disappointment, like Desi said.
It was the one that got me.
Yeah. It almost didn't make it because people said it wasn't actually an attraction vehicle. Some people had to convince Tom to include it. But yeah, People Mover's still in there. People Mover's going to go pretty far, I think.
As long as one of the classics makes it through, I guess we'll take it.
Right, exactly. But speaking of which, now's a good time for a commercial break. So speaking of WDW News Tonight, if you didn't see the show this past week, then there's something really, really funny that you missed, and I'm going to play it right now in lieu of our commercial break. So here we go.
When I find myself at Flower and Garden, looking for some food to eat, I gotta get a spork with Spike the Bee. 58 pallets of unsold units standing right in front of me. Here for his 5th straight festival, Spike the Bee. Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee. Perfect for any food type, Spike the Bee. And while it's good for soup and chili, he's also perfect for poutine and Tupelo honey spoon bread, Spike the Bee. Plastic forks and spoons are wasteful, and they can't ever hope to be that versatile festival flatware, Spike the Bee. Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, yeah, Spike the Bee. For blood orange margaritas, Spike the Bee.
How do you eat that with a spork?
Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, yeah, Spike the Bee. Disney hopes you'll finally purchase Spike the Bee.
So there we go, a tribute to Spike the Bee, the Spike the Bee spork at Flower and Garden. That's absolutely one of the favorite things that we've ever done ever. And Eric, our own Eric Morton, has done a phenomenal job with that.
He's outdone himself.
He's outdone himself.
And shout out to Eric. I hope you're feeling better after the Flower and Garden food as well.
Yeah, he's not feeling well today. Otherwise, he might have been on here. But, yeah. It's funny because people, after we played that, people were asking, like, well, who's playing the guitar? I mean, we're talented, I admit, but we don't have a guitar player on staff. That's just like a karaoke track that we got. But anyway, yeah.
You could have just told us it was you and we would have believed you. We'd be like, oh my God, Jason, you're so talented.
Then somebody would want me to do it on the show, and I'd be like, no. And then people would be like, we'll give you super chats, and then they'll be like, sending in hundreds of dollars, and then, no, that's why you don't do that. No,
Eat a cricket while playing the guitar.
I mean, I might eat a cricket if I had the chocolate-covered one, but...
oh, no.
Yeah, no, it's not worth it. But anyways, yes, so Spike the Bee, please go buy one so that they can come out with something new in 2025. Anyway, yeah, there's new merchandise at Carousel of Products for Disney California Adventure's 20th anniversary, which is now 20 years in 1 month, but there's a handful of things still left from that collection that we released So check out carousellerproducts.com for all your Disney apparel needs. There's the commercial that we should have played, but I don't have. Anyway.
And the Carousel product T-shirts are cuter than the Orange Bird ones anyway.
Well, I hope we don't come out with an Orange Bird Carousel product shirt, Desi, because you will never buy it.
I think that the Sipper is really cute, but the Spirit jersey, there's just too much going on there for me.
Yeah. All right, so what else do we want to talk about? We covered Disneyland in California. That's kind of the big news. I mean, we'll certainly have people there when it opens, and we'll have Allie come back after it opens and give us a report. And I assume we'll start having live streams from Disneyland when it opens, because those are going to be super popular, and people like me will want to see somebody walking around the park. Any Disneyland Paris news? Not really. I don't know what's going on. There's pretty much nothing going on at Disneyland Paris at this point.
It's still closed, right?
Yeah, it's still closed. They were going to open for a little bit in April, and then I don't know if they decided not to or what. But yeah, it's still closed, and everything's canceled up through May or something. One interesting thing that I'm looking forward to hearing is Japan is supposed to apparently make some kind of decision on the Olympics and whether people are going to be able to travel to Japan for the Olympics. And first thing I thought when I heard that, well, is heck, if I can go to Japan for the Olympics, then I can go for Tokyo Disneyland too, right? I'm not an Olympian, but I'll walk around the park for 12 hours. That's kind of a world record or something, maybe. I don't know.
I struggled with canceling my tickets to Japan, and after hearing that they still aren't sure about the Olympics, which are supposed to be in June, now I'm feeling like, okay, I did the right thing canceling my tickets for April.
Yeah.
And there's still question, from what I was reading, as to who will actually be able to attend the Olympics if and when it does actually happen.
Right.
Will it be people from the islands, people from international? It's a big up in the air kind of a thing. So who knows?
Yep.
I was going to ask Desi, since you went to EPCOT, your opinion on the music in the entryway, and did you go at night?
Oh yeah, you talked about the lighting a little bit.
I did. I liked the music. I thought it was great. I mean, I still have a soft place in my heart for the OG music, but I liked the music. I thought it was nice.
I mean,
Got nothing bad to say about it.
Sounds pretty cool.
Here's my problem with the music. This is going to turn into my rant. Here we go.
Uh-oh.
Sorry.
The music is fine. The EPCOT has had original entrance music for a long time. And my problem isn't that they changed it. My problem is that they changed it to something that's not an original composition designed for the park. Right? Like, so much of EPCOT and so much of what I love and remember about EPCOT in the 80s and 90s all has to do with the music. You've got the entrance music loop. Every attraction had a music loop. Almost every attraction had a music loop. Tomorrow's Child is one of my favorite tracks ever from anywhere. We go in the car, like I have a memory stick, like a 256 gig memory stick with like my entire Disney audio collection on it. So there's 150 CDs worth of music on this memory stick, and it's in my car. And we can navigate through the whole thing and pick any piece of Disney music we want. And you know what my kids pick? This is going to blow your mind. My kids usually argue back and forth between Feel the Flow and Universe of Energy. Those are the two tracks. Those are the two tracks that they want to hear.
I did not see that coming.
No, right? Like, every time we are on the road and the radio gets old and I say turn this garbage off, and they put on Disney music. It's the 1988 official album. It has all the Epcot tracks. It has Listen to the Land, they like a lot. Feel the Flow, Universe of Energy. They don't actually like Tomorrow's Child, which
What?
I'm disappointed. But it has so many fantastic tracks from Epcot on that CD, and that's what I listen to. So much of the music, so much of
Veggie, fruit.
there's that. Yep. There's even like the World of Motion theme song, which is really, which I like too. But it's like so much of what made Epcot was the music, the original compositions for every single pavilion, and that's what's been getting chipped away little by little. And for me, the fact that we still had the entrance loop, which was all, those original compositions put together in some kind of an arrangement, that was like the best. And I'm kind of sad. Like that's one of the last pieces of Epcot that's still there, and now it's gone. And again, I'm not upset that they decided they wanted to change the music. I'm kind of okay with that. I'm upset that they just found some off-the-shelf music and strung it together and started to play it. Like they didn't even feel it was worth it enough to come up with an original composition for that park. That they just, pulled up some Spotify playlist and stuck it on the system and play it at the entrance to Epcot. That's what's upsetting to me. Like Disney, nowadays, Disney does not at all understand the power of music in the theme parks. They just don't. Like, I'm amazed that Voices of Liberty and the Dapper Dan still exist, because that's kind of, the last vestiges of music at the parks. And so to yank out the original Epcot entrance music loop that's been there since 1982 in some way, shape, or form, and just put in this other random music from, they might be very talented musicians, sure, but they didn't compose that music. They weren't inspired to compose that music by a trip to Epcot. And if they were, I want to meet them. And their music certainly belongs in the entrance music loop. But I'm pretty sure they weren't inspired by Epcot to write those music pieces. And so I don't even need original Epcot, like 80s Epcot music in a arrangement in the entranceway. I just want something that fits the grandeur of the park. That's all I want.
Well, as a reminder, this music was inspired by the breathtaking views and aspirational architecture of the original Epcot.
Yeah. So was Communicore, which now doesn't exist.
Oh,
I agree with you.
Communicore.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I agree with you, Jason. Some of my earliest memories of Epcot are actually World of Motion. The cart with the chickens and everything, and then of course the original Figment ride. So those things are near and dear to my heart, and so pieces of music is all that we had.
Yep.
And I don't think that the smash bang, go in and take everything out that is old and make it new again, and like they did to the Great Movie Ride, is necessarily the best way to go about it. Maybe they could have rearranged it. Maybe they could have brought in some a different beat, some kind of a new arrangement that was more to date. But they could have left those pieces in there.
I did in the music. I don't think I realized that it wasn't original.
Yeah, I think most people didn't realize it was original until some people just, pulled up Shazam on their phone while standing around. I mean, I've done that, honestly. Like, I remember a couple of years ago walking through downtown Disney at Disneyland, and a really cool arrangement of Main Street Electrical Parade came on, and I'm like, wow, this is cool, and I've never heard it. And so I pull up Shazam, and it tells me it's from some weird, it's Disney Adventures in Bossa Nova, which was like a weird album that was released in Brazil or something, but it had weird takes on all the, and I found it on eBay and I bought it. But anyway, yeah, so it's like there's plenty of talent out there that can create good music. And why they just decide to go find off-the-shelf stuff. I mean, it's kind of like rides, right? Like, every once in a while they come up with a really cool original ride, but then there's plenty of times where they just buy off-the-shelf crap like Slinky Dog Dash and Alien Swirling Saucers, right? So...
Best acronym ever.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Did they not think it through?
Apparently not. We thought Monsters, Inc. Laugh Floor taught them a lesson, but apparently not. Actually, to be honest, no. You know what happened was Monsters, Inc. Laugh Floor taught them a lesson, and then all those people got fired, and so there's no institutional memory anymore, and then they just make the same mistake again and again. But anyway,
so a little bit of a counterpoint to that, to the entrance point, to the entrance music is first of all, yeah, I totally agree. One of the tracks I play all the time is a couple generations of Epcot's entrance medley, because it has all of the rides that I remember in a more symphonic orchestral, really cool arrangement, and it's really amazing. But I mean, we're definitely in the catch-up era of Disney. I mean, we had the Eisner decade, we had the post-Disney period, we are now in the catch-up period, and so this is what you get. But on the other hand, my mind also says, well, none of the music on, or very little of the music on Main Street is original. It's mostly old hits from the 40s and 20s and so forth.
Yeah.
None of my favorite track, which was the prelude to Illuminations, none of that was original. That was all pre-written.
Yep.
And, I mean, there's a lot of music that is good and might fit the epic nature of the vision of Epcot, but I would prefer that they write it themselves. But if they're not, because this is the catch-up era, they're going to get it out of the Spotify bottle, and they chose fairly well, considering what they could have chosen.
I thought it was nice.
So they did, and I'm not gonna. You're not wrong, right? And Desi likes the music. That's not. I'm not saying that's the problem. The problem is that they didn't need to change it. Right? Like, did people complain about the entrance music? Like, what was... I mean, maybe when the park is all done and they're ready to reopen and have, like, a grand rededication of the new Epcot, then it's a good time to change it, but it's, like, just such a random time in the middle of a multi-year refurbishment of the entire park. So why change it now? I
wonder if COVID messed up the schedules there or something.
But also, why did they need to change it at all? Right? Like, Epcot Forever had original classic Epcot music in it. It was people liked that music. They put it in a show that they called Epcot Forever specifically to appease the people that are going to be pissed when they tear down half the park. Right? So why did they need to change? Like, who felt compelled to change the entrance loop? Like, if they want to cut costs and don't want to spend money on things, why not just leave it be? Right? Like, just let it be.
Maybe they did. Somebody's putting their mark on Epcot. Who knows? I mean, there's so few creative people left. I can't imagine that somebody really wanted to put their stamp on Epcot the way things are going these days.
Right?
Along those same lines, one of the musicals pieces that I really, really miss is the Fountain of Nations shows.
Yeah.
That had some of my favorite
Yes.
pieces.
That was
went
all
along.
I agree with you.
That was all non-original music too, though. I mean,
Yeah,
some
well,
of
it came from properties, but yeah, a lot of it was like Yanni was in there,
Yeah.
and a few other
right, which
you
they
know,
stole from
composers.
which they stole from SeaWorld because they used to
Right.
play that at the
But then
Shamu
they
show.
also had Rescue Rangers Down Under, so
Yeah.
you know, which is an awesome soundtrack.
Yep.
So.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yes. No, agreed. 100% agreed. No, the Yanni stuff was cool. I had the Yanni CD before I ever heard that piece of music at EPCOT, and it was pretty funny to hear it. And I'm like, I know what this music is. Yep.
Yeah.
And SeaWorld, for that matter. Like sitting
Yep.
waiting for the Shamu show and hearing the music, I'm like, I know what this music is. No one else knows what it is. But I know what it is because I'm a weirdo and have this guy, like, all of his
Yep.
CDs. So,
Yeah. Well, even, I mean, going all the way back to Main Street Electrical Parade, Baroque Hoedown was
Yes.
not written for that. I mean,
No, it
fit
wasn't.
and it was a really cool soundtrack the way they electro-symphonicized it, but
well,
it was,
I mean,
it
there
wasn't
was
original to the parade.
it wasn't original to the parade, but it was certainly customized, right?
Yes.
Like it was customized for the parade. But the best story that I ever heard about Main Street Electrical Parade was Baroque Hoedown was written by Jean-Jacques Perret, and Disney licensed the music and put it in Main Street Electrical Parade, and he didn't know it. The composer of Baroque Hoedown did not know it. And one year, like 20 years later, he was at Disneyland, and he's watching the Main Street Electrical Parade, and his music starts playing, and he's like, oh my God. Like, he did, for 20 years, he did not realize
Wow.
that
Did
Disney...
he not get royalties for it?
I mean, I assume he did, but
gosh.
it doesn't necessarily... I mean, royalties come in through
Royalties
a
are-
performing rights organization licensing agreement thing. You don't necessarily know who is paying the royalties. So he didn't know that his music was like a fanboy favorite for years and years at the Electrical Parade. That's one of the funniest stories that I've ever heard in my entire life.
That's crazy.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, because supposedly he wrote it as kind of a one-off, you know, fun piece that he didn't really expect to go anywhere. And
I mean, those
yet
two
there
guys,
it was.
Perret and Kingsley, were two, like, really, you know, they were on the cutting edge of this electronic sound, and they
Right.
were just doing, like, I mean, I'm sure they were high on something and just, like, doing crazy stuff and stuck it on an album. And then somehow Don Dorsey found it and was like, hey, let's put this in Main Street Electrical Parade. And then he did.
Yeah.
And the composers didn't know. It's the craziest thing.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Just be thankful they didn't choose Popcorn, which was another early composition.
Didn't Disneyland in Paint the Night, didn't they splice in Spectromagic? They just sped it up.
I mean, there's a little bit of, like, Electrical Parade and Spectromagic in there, I think. But honestly, so Paint the Night is another piece of music that's not original.
Really?
Yeah. When Can We See This Again is not an original song for that parade, but they did a really good job of taking that song and putting a Disney spin on it to use for that parade. And so, I mean, that's like, if they would have done that with this off-the-shelf music at the EPCOT entrance, like if they would have put their Disney spin on it or spliced it in with some other stuff or whatever, I'd be happier. But it's like they just took a Spotify playlist and played it, and that was it. And to me, that's not very inspiring.
Well, again, this is the catch-up
I
era,
would say
so you
most
get what
people
the-
aren't going to notice that.
I think they're not, right? I don't think they are at all. Most people aren't
Yeah,
going to
totally.
notice
I
that.
mean,
Most people aren't going
I'm
to notice that Epcot Forever is a
huge-
terrible show.
well, hopefully most people notice that.
Most people didn't notice that Rivers of Light was a piece of garbage. right? I mean,
Who didn't
people went to
notice
see
that?
it.
That's why the show was always empty, was because everyone knew it was a piece of garbage.
Well, not the people that were still going, not the people that were all excited because it was their first time. They didn't know.
Well,
Yeah.
At least
But
not
I mean, it
until
was a good
20
show
minutes
the
later.
first time you saw it. It was okay. And this kind of goes back to what I think you were saying, Jason, earlier. It annoys me to know what it could have been. You know, the original plans for Rivers of Light and what it was actually supposed to be. And so I think the EPCOT project, you know, what it could have been, and part of it's, they lost bazillions of dollars that they still have in the bank over the past year, but it just irks me to understand what could have been versus what we actually.
Well, I mean, so to be honest, like, if Rivers of Light is a piece of garbage compared to what it could have been, as long as Harmonious doesn't come out to that same end, I think it will be. I'll be happy. My biggest concern now, like everybody's
Harmonious
saying,
has to be amazing.
right? That's exactly
Exactly.
what everybody is saying, because look at how much money they spent on these barges and the rings and everything, right? That's what everybody is saying, and my biggest fear is that they blew the whole budget on technology and there's no storytelling and there's no original music and there's no there's no emotion to the show. There's not going to be any fireworks because they blew the whole budget on these stupid barges, and that's all you're going to get is like a barge show with TV. That's my worry.
Well,
they're going to
my
take the tape
concern
from
is
the
that-
halftime show at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, right? Like they're
Is
just going to
that-
show garbage on those screens, and it's going to be
Yes.
like nobody cares.
Even if it's as good as Illuminations, I would still be irritated because of the barges in the middle that I have to look at for the rest of the 9 hours of the day.
Yeah.
It has to be better than Illuminations. It has to be the
Right.
greatest nighttime spectacular they've ever had to make it worth having that eyesore.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's my thought too. And even then, it may not be worth it. But if it's not better, than like Illuminations and Phantasmic and World of Color and Paint the Night combined, if it's not better than all of those things, then we clearly got screwed. And even if it is better than all of those things, I still don't know whether it's worth it to have that giant eyesore there. So that's my biggest worry, is that and that's what people are saying, like, oh, well, it's going to be a great show. Well, that's fine. It better be a great show. But they still could have put on a great show and not had eyesores in the lagoon, right? Because they did it. They did it 20 years ago with Illuminations. They put on a great show and didn't have eyesores in the lagoon to do it. So,
Yep.
there you go.
But they've gone away from
I
the
mean-
traditional fireworks show. You know, the last true fireworks show besides Illuminations was Wishes. Now
Yeah.
it's just the projection, and then the fireworks are sort of as an add-on or, enhancement. So that's probably what Harmonious is going to be.
Yeah.
It's going to be projection, it's going
Yeah.
to be, audio-visual stuff, and then just the add-on of a
I
few
mean,
little lasers or something.
Illuminations wasn't, fireworks the whole
The
time
original
either.
Illuminations wasn't
Right.
heavy on fireworks. There was a lot of fountains and lasers and lights on the pavilions, which you can't see now.
Right?
So yeah, I mean, that's the problem, is that you can certainly do a really good show without fireworks, but if there's nothing else to look at but a screen, then why don't I just sit there like holding my phone up in front of my face, because that's kind of what I'm looking at, right? Like, what difference does it make at that point if I see a screen other than the screen is in the shape of a taco as opposed to a rectangle? I mean, why wouldn't I just sit there with my phone in front of me if I wanted to see a screen?
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
problem, right? Like, that's the thing that I don't think anybody really gets who's on these creative teams that put rides and shows together, is that people
I was
have enough
very-
screens.
Yeah.
I was very upset when I heard that Wishes was going away and very skeptical about Happily Ever After. But I will say that I was pleasantly surprised by it, and I cried the first time I saw Happily Ever After. So I'm hoping that I don't just cry a little. I hope that I have like tears running down my face because Harmonious is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life.
I hope so. I hope so. I mean,
hope
I didn't.
so.
I didn't like I don't like Happily Ever After. I don't know why I don't like it.
No,
It just-
I like it.
It,
You're wrong,
it's-
Jason. Sorry.
It's just not Wishes, but
I
I
mean-
still like Happily Ever After, and I did cry the first time I saw it.
It's okay. It's
but-
an okay show.
But Harmonious has to blow it out of the water because of what we have to look at for 9 hours.
Yeah.
Right.
So Primus in the chat says you need binoculars for illuminations like watching a movie from a quarter mile away. I assume he's talking about the Earth globe, and I don't disagree that the Earth globe wasn't necessarily the best part of Reflections of Earth, but there was plenty of other stuff that was great. And yeah, you probably could have cut a lot of the Earth globe segment of the show, but you still would have had a great show. Like, the screen wasn't critical to the show. And that's the problem, is that the screens are obviously critical to Harmonious because they're gigantic and you can't see anything else. So the screens
Well, and
are
that's
the
why-
show.
That's why I'm worried if you don't have the right spot to be standing in, that you're going to get a bad experience watching the show because you aren't going to get it from the right angle.
Yeah.
And so
I
is
mean,
everybody going to be crowded around that one spot where you can
know
see
what?
the show well?
You know what else that happens with? Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Because if you're in the very first car or you're in the very last car,
True.
you miss a lot of what happens. Like, if you're in the last car, when you turn the first bend after you leave the load area, there's all kinds of stuff going on, and Goofy is like saying things in the back of the train engine, and you don't see any of it.
I have been on that ride multiple times, but all after COVID. I didn't ever go on it to be able to see the pre-show. I have no idea what's going on.
No,
I've
I
ridden
don't
that
either.
ride several times, and I'm still trying to figure it out. I have no idea what's going on.
I've
My
ridden it-
2-year-old enjoys it. That's
I've
That's about-
ridden it twice and couldn't figure out what was going on it, and then I gave up. Like, it's not worth standing in line anymore. I would go on it if it was like a 5-minute wait, but that's probably where I draw the line. Like, I wouldn't wait more than... I certainly wouldn't
when
wait
I
more
have
than 10
gone
minutes.
on it has either been at the beginning of the day when it's like when you had to be in the park to get your ride
Yeah.
boarding group for Rise
Yep.
of the Resistance. I'm like, okay, well, while I'm waiting for Rise of the Resistance, I might as well stand in this line. Or I've gone like at the end of the night when there's no wait. I've never just stood in that line because I thought that it was a good use of an hour and a half of my time.
It's definitely not a good use of an hour and a half.
No. I've only
What I
gone
do
when
is
it's either been first thing in the day or last thing at night.
That's perfect. I will actually have YouTube pulled up and do the POV pre-COVID for my kids to watch the pre-show as we're standing in line, and then they can understand maybe a little bit about the story prior to boarding.
Can I just put something up here that just shows the absurdity of Disney and especially their social media people? What's wrong with this picture? None of those answers are correct.
Can't even
The
read.
bird's
Yeah.
name the bird's name is Chubby.
Who's getting that? Ask me about my Chubby
Oh, there you
shirt.
go.
Yeah, it's
Chubby.
not chubby.
Oh,
The
God.
bird's name is Chubby.
Oh, no.
People at Disney that run their Instagram account have not ridden this ride, obviously,
That's just sad.
because they don't even know what the bird's name is. Like, how bad is it
I'm
they're
gonna
putting
say
out
that
a
that's
trivia contest. No, you think it's a typo. I don't
that's
think
an
it's a typo.
autocorrect.
I don't.
That's
Does
an
Instagram
autocorrect.
even do autocorrect? I mean, they had
I
to
don't know.
create this graphic. This isn't like an Instagram. They had to create this graphic, right? They don't know what their own attraction animals are called.
Sad.
Like that's. I mean, I can't blame them for not wanting to ride the ride, but if you work for the Disney social media team, you should at least know what the things are called. But apparently
Especially
they
when
don't.
it's a merchandise bird.
Yeah, the merchandise
Exactly.
bird. So anyway, that's just a little side rant. It's just stupid. That ride's terrible. But anyway, I wanted to get back to Happily Ever After because I don't like it, and I don't know why I don't like it. I mean, honestly, I really like the projections, right? Like, there's a lot less fireworks than Wishes. I like the projections in Happily Ever After. And the fireworks are okay too. I think it's just the music that doesn't move me. It doesn't do anything for me.
I feel like the music is great because it's all of the music that I grew up with. I feel like if you were a kid
So I'm
in
too old,
the
you're telling me.
90s, no,
Yeah,
like
that's what
I
you're
went
telling
with
me.
my friend who's in her 20s, and I feel like she didn't get the same experience out of it that I did. I'm like right in that age group that's like, this was my childhood. It's Hunchback of Notre Dame, Hercules, like movies that aren't necessarily their top movies for anybody other than somebody who's exactly my age.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the problem is I'm old.
And
Yes.
I'm older as well, but I was going to say the reason that I like it is because those are my children's movies.
Well,
I mean, they
yeah,
were a little
see.
bit on the older side, but those, I mean, they love that musical selection. They really like that.
I mean, that's fine. I think Happily is a decent show, and I'm glad a lot of people like it. It's just not for me. But then again, neither is Rivers of Light, and neither is Illuminations now that it doesn't exist, and neither is Fantasmic now that they're not showing it. So, I mean, I would just be happy with a nighttime parade at this point. But that's not happening either, so oh well. All right, we've got 15 minutes, and people are wanting to do the positive issues segment of our show now. So we'll go around and we will talk about something positive, and when everybody's done talking about something positive, we'll end the show. And if there's not much positive this week, then I guess we end the show early. We have to come up with something positive.
I really liked the Healthful Trail at the Flower and Garden Festival. I thought that it was so cute. It was the thing that my kids, when it was time to go to the baby center and change their diapers, they pitched a fit about leaving because they loved it so much. They loved just running around, going through the maze, just having a place where kids can stretch their legs. Great, and it was so cute. I loved the little benches that look like this. That's my positive.
Cool. I'm glad that's back. It's definitely, like, if it takes kids out of my way at EPCOT, I'm all for it. Like you want to knock down Communicore and build something, build a giant playground that all the kids can stay in the whole day while I go around the rest of EPCOT, and I'm all for it. That's great. I'm so glad that's back.
The other thing, because they can't meet characters, just having the topiary of Woody, my son didn't want to leave that topiary. He just wanted to stand in front of that topiary and look at Woody all day.
Cool.
I'm excited. I'm excited for Blizzard Beach to be back open.
You stole one of mine,
We're-
but that's fine.
We're planning on going next month when we're there, and we've never done Blizzard Beach. We've always done Typhoon Lagoon, so this will be a new experience for my kids anyway, and it'll be really fun. So I'm glad that we don't have to have apparently don't have to have a park pass. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Nope, not that I know of.
So that's cool. I don't have to worry about that. Also, if we didn't get to it, but I'm excited to hear, even though it's slated later than they originally said for Epic Universe to get started back in production there.
Oh, I'm sorry. People wanted us to say something nice about Disney. Did I not specify that? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It counts. It counts. Yeah, no, Epic Universe is very exciting news. And it's exciting news not only because Universal's actually spending money on something that looks like it's going to be good, since we've seen what it's like in Japan. But it's going to be good because it's going to force Disney to actually do something. Instead of just tear down rides and put in garbage, they're going to have to respond in some way. And so far, their responses have been lackluster to big things Universal has done. Like their response to Harry Potter was Galaxy's Edge, and that was pretty lackluster. And their response to Hagrid's and Velocicoaster is, I don't even know what. I mean, I guess you could call Cosmic Rewind their sort of response, but I mean, Universal can design and build Velocicoaster faster than Disney can even put together a canopy for Tron. But Epic Universe is going to be great news because it's going to force Disney to step up the game. So, yeah.
Just franchise-wise, I prefer Star Wars to Harry Potter, so...
Oh, I do, too.
It's just my own personal preference.
I totally do. I think the rides in Galaxy's Edge are better than the rides in Harry Potter Land, but Harry Potter Land is a more well executed land.
Well,
like being
it's
on the
because they
movie
took
set.
the movies, whereas
Yeah.
Galaxy's Edge is just kind of they made it up, or I guess it was in a book first.
Yeah,
A
right.
book that nobody read.
So they made it up. Yeah. Someone else made it up, and then they made it up into a real place.
Yeah, and then the character V or Vi, I don't know what her name is. She's apparently from that book, but
I don't even know who.
I never read the book. I don't know anybody who actually read the book, but
No, I don't even know who that
that's
is.
where she's from. In
Maz
case you're wondering
Kanata.
who that random girl is with the blue hair.
Yeah.
Wow.
Go ahead, Rich.
So I'm positive that Harry Potter World is better implemented than Galaxy's Edge. But going back to our earlier discussion, I think that is part of what Galaxy's Edge could have been. So I'm still always hopeful that we'll get what is going to be instead of what could have been. And I mean, we'll be down in Florida for May and June this year, and one of the very first things we talked about is spending a day in the parks, probably Epcot. And just because even with everything going on, it still engenders that feeling of being in that place that we like to be in. You know, that just yes, the music has changed, but it's still music. The lights have changed, it's still music. There's billboards on the construction walls, but there's still construction walls. But it's still a place that we like to go.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll, eat some food, and we'll avoid some
And,
things. But we'll eat some food at the festival, and that's a good thing too.
By June, Food and White should start.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, doesn't
Not
this
really.
one go to throughout June, or even July? It's ridiculously long this year.
It is. I
The
mean,
taste of is,
and remember, Food and Wine started last year on July 11th.
In
So
July, yeah.
this may
Right.
go till like July 10th. Who knows?
right. So we're just going to have one flop of it. Just paint over the sign. They're going to put decals on the signs, and then it'll be Food
Yeah.
and Wine.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So I mean, with everything else going on, we are still looking forward to spending a day at Disney.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. Like, I still go to Epcot, and I love going to Epcot, even though I get disappointed every time I go. And it's kind
I
of
love
like
going even when it makes me sick.
I love going even when it makes me sad. And that's kind of the ultimate, right? Like, that's the ultimate love for a place, is that you keep going back even when it disappoints you, it makes you sad, and you don't like it. You keep going back. And that's all because of the feelings that it evokes in you.
Right.
And the problem is that if that doesn't happen to young people today, then there's not going to be anybody to go back to EPCOT in 20 years. Because there's not going to be any reason for them to go. There's not going to be any feelings there that make them want to go to EPCOT, even though it's disappointing.
That's the reason I don't go to Universal anymore, is because they got rid of all of the stuff that I loved.
I go for ET.
ET can say Jason. He can't say Desi.
Well, he can't say anything right now, but I don't know when he'll ever bring that back. But he doesn't say anything right now. I just want to address something that David put in the chat. Harry Potter rides are really intense rides for people prone to motion sickness. You are absolutely 100% correct.
Yes.
And I can't go on. I mean, I've gone on them all. I can't go on Forbidden Journey more than once a month. I went on Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, the longest name of an attraction almost ever. I went on Hagrid's like 3 times over the course of 3 days, and I kind of, last time we went, I didn't go. Like when we went 2 weeks ago for Mardi Gras, my sister went on. I didn't go. I'm just gonna sit here and not go. And Gringotts I can do. Gringotts is the ride that makes me the least sick. It's also the ride that people don't like the most. And so I'm willing to go on Gringotts, but most of the other people I go with are like, I don't want to go on that ride. It's bad. So I don't go on Gringotts either. But that's part of the argument, is that even if you don't go on the rides in Harry Potter Land, it's still a really well done, really well executed, and really magical place to be. And I don't think that's true for Galaxy's Edge. Like
Galaxy's Edge is the reverse. It's got the great rides, but the land itself doesn't have the magic.
Like to be completely honest, you can go to Galaxy, like if you're not going on the rides in Galaxy's Edge or in the stores, then I don't know why you'd go there. It's just the most...
Take a photo in front of the Millennium Falcon.
How many times can you do that, though? Like, it's really, other than the Millennium Falcon, it's really kind of the most bland themed land in a park. There's not a whole lot to do there.
I like the cantina if you can get in.
If you're going for the cantina, that's decent, yes. BC fan wants to argue about how is Millennium Falcon even borderline great, but we're not going to get into that because we're almost I love Millennium Falcon. I think it's a great attraction.
I love it too.
So here's a thought.
Yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Here's a thought too. When we, I mean, everybody compares Harry Potter Land to Galaxy's Edge, but the designers of Harry Potter Land had a huge advantage because the entire 11 years? No, 7 years of the story happens either at Privet Drive, the Burrow, Diagon Alley, or Hogwarts. Whereas Star Wars has, 23 different locations in 2 different star systems, and lots of planets.
But they didn't pick any of those 23.
Right. So the challenge was, how do you pick one of those? I would have chosen probably Tatooine because that's my generation's Star Wars. But how do you choose one of those and still have it, relatable to the entire story? Choosing Diagon Alley was kind of a slam dunk because that is a center point of a lot that happens in the story. So yeah, it's a similar thing. It's highly immersive, and I think better done than Galaxy's Edge from a design point of view, from the way it makes you feel. But I don't know that it's a one-to-one apples to apples comparison
Well,
with what they attempt to do with Galaxy's Edge.
and that's fair, right? Like maybe it was easier to design Harry Potter Land than it was Galaxy's Edge. Disney is supposed to be better at these things than Universal. And clearly,
Well, except that the number of Disney people who work at Universal.
well, right, and so, but I mean, you don't really get that. You don't get that. People don't understand that, right? Like people don't understand that it was actually Disney people that designed Harry Potter Land. It was actually Disney people that designed all of Islands of Adventure, to be honest. But anyway,
Yeah.
Disney.
Disney
People think that Disney is supposed to be better than Universal at this kind of thing. And when Universal comes out with a land that's better than Disney, there's the sense that there's a problem.
Well, again,
I would say the majority of Islands of Adventure is not well designed.
I mean, that's an argument that may be fair. I won't say no, but Poseidon's Fury.
But the individual items within, and it's been decades since I set foot in Universal, but the individual items that once were within Islands of Adventure were well designed. But the environment as a whole was very not cohesive and not immersive.
Yeah, no, I mean, right, exactly. Like, Islands of Adventure is a great jumble of a bunch of different lands.
A bunch of different IPs. I mean,
Yeah.
as a child of the 90s, Desi, I mean, didn't you love walking in the gates of Jurassic Park with that theme music and the fog and everything?
Yeah.
Like, that was awesome, you know?
I actually got married at Jurassic Park, so it definitely
What?
has a place in my heart.
See, that was great.
Jurassic-
I would have loved it. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, Rich, I would have loved to have each coast have a different either timeline or at least a different location within the Star Wars
that would have been
universe.
cool.
Sure.
And that would, because you hop a plane and you go throughout time and you go travel and see Darth Vader and Luke and Leia, and then you go to the other coast, and it's a reason to go to both coasts. But nobody asked me,
I
so
love
that's
that.
fine.
No.
Yeah.
They need
A
to
few
hire
comments
you.
in
I
the
love that
chat,
idea.
and I agree. Galaxy's Edge was designed by committee. I mean, which makes it different from almost all the other lands that we really do like, which had a very strong egocentric megalomaniac type designer at the helm. But hey, they did good work.
Right. Yes. I was going to say, I love Jurassic Park too. And
I love that island. There are other islands I don't love within Islands of Adventure.
Oh, I love Poseidon's Fury Island. I mean, that's the only thing that's kind of there is Poseidon's Fury, but Poseidon's Fury Island is my favorite too. I love Jurassic Park. What I don't like is that they're turning things into Jurassic World, and I don't like Jurassic World. So I buy all the stuff they sell that has Jurassic Park on it, and I don't buy anything that has Jurassic World on it. And I hope somebody's paying attention. But anyway.
Well, I did. My husband and I one year did Owen and Claire for Halloween, and we dressed our dog up as Blue, the little raptor.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
I still like Jurassic World, but that's me.
Yeah. Well. Anyway, what was I? Was I responding to someone in the chat about something? I can't remember now. Anyway, all right. Yeah. Islands of Adventure is a cool park. I really like it. A lot of it's really jumbled, but the individual rides are really well done. Now I have to say something positive, and it was going to be Blizzard Beach, and I'm just glad they finally decided that it makes sense to open a water park, right? Like there's so many things that Disney has done that they blame on COVID that's not really COVID's fault. And not opening a water park was one of them, and I'm glad that they've finally gotten to the point where they've decided it makes sense to open a water park. Because they could have easily just kept it closed and blamed it on COVID. And I mean, granted, their mask rules are much more stringent than the mask rules at Volcano Bay, which is pretty much after you've entered the turnstiles, you can take your mask off, kind of thing. Um, so yeah, their mask rules are much more stringent, but I'm happy that they've actually opened it, because I think it seems like they're finally realizing that the product that they're offering overall to the people that visit Walt Disney World is not up to par. It's not up to standards. It's not what people are wanting. It's not. It's disappointing to people. So I think the more that they do these kinds of things, the more people will be happy with their Disney World experience, and hopefully that means that they'll add more entertainment and open more things as time goes on. There was one other positive thing, and now I can't remember what it was. Oh, I'm happy that Disneyland is finally going to open at some point soon.
Oh, yeah.
That's exciting. It will have been over a year that they're closed, and I don't think, I can remember a couple of years ago when one of the hurricanes was coming through Florida and Disney closed, and people were talking about well, Disney has only ever closed 4 days since it opened, and one was 9/11. Well, one was 9/12, I guess.
12, yeah.
Right, and once was a hurricane, and the third time was a hurricane, and the fourth time was a hurricane, and so you used to count the number of times a Disney park closed on one hand or two hands. And Disneyland, I mean, obviously when Disneyland first opened, they weren't open 7 days a week. They closed Tuesday and Wednesday or something. But that was planned, so that was by design. But for Disneyland to be closed for over a year is just, I think, when people look back on this 20, 30 years in the future, that there was it's like that Rankin Bass special, The Year Without a Santa Claus. It's like the year without Disneyland. And it's
Oh my God.
that's going to be, people are going to look back and be like, it's just unfathomable that Disneyland was closed for a whole year. That's just going to be, people aren't going to get it. People look back to the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic and how bad things were, and no one alive now experienced that, or at least not old enough to remember it. But and it's going to be the same way. People are going to look back and be like, damn, that COVID was pretty bad that Disneyland had to close for an entire year. And so I'm really glad that Disneyland's finally opening. And it looks like, I mean, whether it's legislators or people putting pressure on their legislators, it took some maneuvering to get to a point where Disneyland could reopen, and they had to pass laws to make it easier. And that's all California and all the people that live in California and their choices. And I don't have anything. I mean, they elect their government, and they have to deal with it. But from a outside of California point of view, I'm glad that it's reopening, and maybe if that makes people think twice about how they elect their representatives and governors and local government because of COVID, and it makes people sort of think about maybe there's more to why I'm electing someone than just how it benefits me. That would be a good thing. So anyway, but yeah, I'm happy. I'm excited. I mean, California Adventure reopening for a $75 hard ticket event that doesn't have any rides or attractions. No, that wasn't a positive thing. But Disneyland reopening with rides and attractions, even though the ticket cost will be double $75, that's a positive thing. Very excited. I won't be there because I'm not a California resident. But then again, I don't know that I would go. Like, we have reservations for Grand Californian reopening on May 2nd, and I don't actually know that I'm going to go to that either. Because I don't know if it's worth it, honestly.
Well,
at
if
this
all
point.
you're doing is going to the hotel because you're not allowed to go to the theme park, I don't know why you would.
I mean, you would kind of almost think that people who are staying at a Disney hotel are going to be allowed to go into the parks, right? Like, you would kind of think they're, and maybe that's why they're not opening the hotels yet, because anybody staying at the hotels is going to expect to be able to go to the parks, and they can't stop people from coming in out of state and staying at the hotels. But I think either one of two things: either by May 2nd, they're going to relax the entrance policies, or they're going to have to make an exception for people that are staying at Grand Californian to be able to go into the parks. Now, granted, it's only the DVC part of Grand Californian that's open. It's not the whole hotel. And the DVC part is really, really pretty small. It's only like 50-some rooms. So I'm sure they could let those people into the parks. And honestly, if that's the case, then maybe that would actually convince me to go. Because then I could get into the parks and not have to deal with being a California resident. So anyway, but it'll be fun to see. It'll be fun to see how things happen out there over the next 2 months. Yeah. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We actually went overtime tonight. I'm a little surprised. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Stay tuned tomorrow night for the big 50th episode of Cosmic Read Live. I know there's going to be some big announcements on the 50th episode of Cosmic Read. Very exciting. Awesome. And I can't spoil it. But tune in tomorrow.
Hashtag Team Cosmic.
Tune in tomorrow for the big announcements, because that's going to be pretty exciting. And yeah, we'll see you here next Sunday night on Pressing Issues. So thanks a lot. Thanks, Desi and Steph and Rich. Good show tonight, and
thanks for having us.
Yep. Happy
Bye,
Monday
everybody.
tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.